Hey, Kelsey, welcome to Behind the Braves and the Alumni Lounge.
Thank you, guys.
How you doing today?
Nice little setup y'all got here.
Yeah, we like it.
They still let us in here. We've been doing this almost a year now, and they still let us in here.
Do they still know y'all are coming in here?
Sometimes they don't, no. Yeah. I showed up here one day, and they were filming a TV show in here. What was it? I'm not sure if it's come out yet, so I'm not sure if I can say.
It was the one on that they had been doing for a while.
Yeah, I'll say it. It's Brockmire.
Brockmire, yeah.
They're filming Brockmire in here. And I just show up, and this was the green room, and we were getting ready to tape a podcast, just Greg and I doing our thing, and I show up, and Greg wasn't here, but Hank Azaria's chair and all the other actors' chairs were in here, and I was like,
where's our chair?
Where's mine?
And then a production guy came up to me looking like, are you? I think he thought I was here to bring food or something. I'm like, no, I'm just supposed to tape a podcast, but yeah, exactly. So,
well, I will say that when we started thinking about the stadium, my boss at the time was Mike Plant, and I reported directly to him. And so when he announced that we were going to be building a stadium, I sent him a little note, and I said, hey, let me know when I can put in my request. And he goes, well, you're 789. And so I said, okay, I'll see where I stand. And so then about a month and a half goes by, and he goes, where are your requests? He goes, you're about to miss out. I thought, I thought you were kidding. I said, so I want turf. I want a suite. I want, all the stuff. He said, turf. I said, yeah, so we don't have to worry about who's on the field or not, right? Because Ed won't ever let us on the field to do anything.
Yeah.
So, but I did want a suite for the alumni. Because I thought it would be a great rallying point. Well, we cut down the number of suites in half. Were you at Turner Field at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we went from like 60 down to now 30.
I didn't realize that.
So the suite model really changed, and so that's why we ended up with a lounge.
Yeah.
And so, some of the guys, if we have some meetings or guys want to come hang out, I'll bring some food in and drinks. And we did, like I said, we did have not a foosball, we had a pool table.
Yeah.
Where was the pool table?
It was right here.
Oh.
Yeah, it was great and I had baseballs all up on the wall signed, and I came here one day and there was like 10 people shooting pool, and they all had baseballs stacked up on their chairs, and I went, hey, those aren't your baseballs. Like, oh, we just thought they were for anybody who wanted them, and no, not really. So I said, can y'all please leave? Yeah. So I said, okay, well, this might not be what I think it's going to be. But now we got it's where we do our podcast every week.
They're taking like the paintings
and
the TVs.
Yeah.
It's all up for grabs, right? If it's in the alumni lounge.
It's free as for me.
Right. Yeah. If Greg and I leave stuff in here, nobody wants to take it. So it works out. Yeah, it works.
Tennessee Cups and Virginia.
Hey, we're national champions.
Virginia football.
My friend. Virginia
football jerseys.
We're ranked 18th right now, at least till this weekend. Yeah, we play another game this weekend.
Well,
so
LSU's off this week.
Yeah. Well, I will say, Coach O, I love Coach O.
We coming.
I'd follow that man. I'd run through a wall for him. That's not even my team.
That's how I feel about Les Miles.
Yeah?
I'd go to war for Les Miles.
Where did Les end up?
He's at Kansas. They're 2-2 right now. This is when I saw him take the field again. I bawled when I saw him.
Really?
Yeah. Well, whenever he was supposed to get fired by LSU, I was at the game. We were playing Texas A&M, and it was everybody. We all knew that he was going to get fired that night. So it was signs saying "We love you, Les," and he got carried off the field. And I cried when he took the field. I cried when he left the field. And then I remember my dad calling me, walking to my car, and he was like, "They're keeping him. They're keeping Les." Joe Oliva, our AD at the time, just came on the press conference and said that they're keeping him. And then I cried again, and then I cried when he ran out on the field.
So you don't feel that way about Coach O?
I covered LSU while Les was there, and Les Miles was like Brian Snitker, where he's so close with the media. Like Snit, I'm close with his wife. I'm close with his grandkids. I was close with Les Miles' wife, with his kids. So he just has that. He wants to be your friend too, So I never had that with Coach O, because once he was there, I had left. I was here. So
why was it LSU? I know you grew up in Texas.
Yeah.
So did you have family that had gone to LSU?
No, I had no connections to LSU at all. I applied to like 10 big schools I knew. So how I got into baseball, I played volleyball all the way through high school. But the second semester of my senior year is club volleyball. Your first semester you were playing for your school. And I had to decide, okay, for my career, for what I want to do, a big school with big sports programs is probably where I would get the most experience, but I'm not good enough at volleyball to play at those schools. So do I want to kind of give up on volleyball and start with my career path, or do I want to continue with volleyball and go to like a D2 or D3? And I ultimately decided that I wanted to, start working on my career. So I, had visits lined up to OU, Ole Miss, LSU, A&M, Bama, big programs like that, UNT, which I don't know how they just have a really good broadcast school
North
there.
Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have the big programs.
So you knew early on that you wanted to be in broadcasting?
Since like middle school.
Really?
Elementary school, I wanted to be a meteorologist. And then for some reason it changed to sports in middle school. But so when I chose to go to a big school, that second semester I didn't know what to do with myself, because that was my first semester not being a part of a team and having practices and games. So I became the manager for our baseball team, which, obviously manager isn't Brian Snitker. Your manager is I'm keeping book.
Right.
Was at every practice, every tournament, every game. So that's when I fell in love with baseball. And then I just went on all the school visits and loved LSU, but I kind of have that personality where I could have been happy anywhere. I would have embraced wherever I was. So I canceled the trips to OU, Bama, and Ole Miss, because I was like, I'm going to love all of those three too. And if I am happy with LSU, then I just don't want to complicate
Was Skip Burtman still the...
No, Paul Maneri.
Okay, because when I played, that's who we battled out, Joey Bell.
So great.
And all those guys down there.
He's a legend down there.
Yeah, that was the first really AAA ballpark that I actually played in, but it happened to be LSU Stadium. It's an old AAA ballpark.
I didn't know that.
It was, yeah. And they had some really good teams back when I played, in the SEC, because coming off Mississippi State, you had Palmero and Thigpen and
gosh, their facilities now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, if you don't have great facilities like that in the SEC, then you're Arkansas's got a brand new, Tennessee's renovated, Florida. They all have really nice. It's just it's like football.
Yeah.
The baseball's doesn't make as much money, but they still all have really nice facilities.
Well, yeah, and they're also the SEC baseball is just on a different level.
Yeah, they've done really well. So, how have you enjoyed making the transition from being an athlete? Right, you were thinking about it, but you're still being able to be involved in it, and especially with where you are now. Obviously, we're fast forwarding a little bit, but all the things that you did in college to kind of lay the groundwork, because you did a lot of local TV.
Yeah.
You did work with LSU, did stuff with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's how you do it in this industry. I have a lot of girls who come to me that want to be sideline reporters, and they ask how I got here. And I started in Market 179, where you just went to school for 4 years. You're making less than $30,000. Your parents are still paying your rent. It's tough after you've graduated and you feel like, okay, here's the real world. So when I tell girls who come to me for advice that they need to start out on local TV, because that's where you can learn, that's where you can make mistakes, that's where you just understand how television works. You learn how to operate a camera, you learn how to edit, you learn how to shoot, you learn how to write shot sheets, write scripts, anchor, report. And when they'll tell me they don't want to go to a small market or do local TV, then I say I don't want to help you then, because that's like a baseball player getting drafted out of high school and being like, I want to go straight to the show.
Yeah,
I don't want to go to rookie league. I don't want to go. I don't want to play in the minor leagues. I just want to go straight to Atlanta and bat in the 3-hole at SunTrust Park. And it's just not. And that's how I view it. So when girls are like, I'm like,
yeah, well,
then you don't get it.
That's right.
But
got to pay your dues, right? No matter what you do, that's what's going to make you. You're gonna, what do they call, cut your teeth on.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody gave you that incredible shot, let's say like the straight out of high school, you're going to fail and you're going to flame out anyway. So it's like you can't get there without going through that experience. That was part of my getting to work in baseball, involved local TV and local sports radio, where on that radio show, if we had 3 people listening, we were probably lucky. But but that was a way in. That was a way to start and to learn how to just operate stuff and talk. And
you learned. And when that red light comes, that feeling when that red light comes on and you're on air and you're live and it's go time, regardless of how many people are listening, and that's what I always said with Tiger TV in college, which was LSU's student television station, and with all of my internships and being at KALB, the local station, just having that feeling and knowing what to expect when that red light comes on and just getting used to that. But Yeah, I mean, I don't hide it very well. As journalists, we're supposed to be, not a fan of the team, and I'm biased, and I'm not a very good. I think it's apparent. I love the Atlanta Braves.
Well, that doesn't apply.
When I'm wearing a Braves hat and a Braves shirt, I don't know what's
You're not on NBC Nightly News. I mean, you can be the fan, right? You can be the homer.
I think it's one of the good things, especially about baseball and each team having its own broadcast team, is I think it's perfectly. I think the guys in the booth. For me, putting my Braves fan hat on, because I grew up a Braves fan too, when I was a kid, I wanted Skip and Pete and Ernie to be Braves fans in the booth. I wanted them to be honest and say what they think. And if
Skip was very honest.
And Skip was very honest, but you could tell he wanted the Braves to win.
Sure.
I feel the same way about what you guys do now and what the radio guys do. As a fan, I want my broadcasters of my baseball team to be fans of the team. You can be honest and be a fan. I think. I think that's the way it should be.
Well, being a part of the TBS, era, it was sad when TBS came back on and they were doing they were neutral. They just did I just don't like that. I like to I want to listen to my guys. That's why people, I grew up at Tennessee, and John Ward was a famous announcer, and we turned the TV off because we wanted to hear him on the radio. And I would want to listen to to Skip and Pete and Joe and Don and whoever was doing the radio. They would switch halfway through the game.
Right.
I always wanted just to listen to the radio. And not listen to the TV guys, because there's something about it. Growing up in that kind of era, and even today, I feel like I love listening to it on the radio driving home. I don't always stay for the end of the game, but I'm certainly going to listen to it on the radio. There's just something about that. I think there's the imagination and the way they can describe what's going on. And of course, I love what you and Paul do. Y'all do a great job, and I bring so much value. Paul and I go way back. We got traded for one another. He was a little bit. We both were Indians in the minor leagues. We both got drafted by the Indians, But just seeing him transition and seeing what you guys do and how hard it is, and that's one thing I wanted to ask you, is there is a player grind, right? There's 162, there's spring training, there's postseason, which we all live through that. But you're experiencing part of that because you're right there with them.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious how you're holding up, number one, because you look great. I mean, you're always, very positive, but I know you got a tough job. I mean, you're always on, you're here early, you're here late. And so how are you handling that?
So what I normally tell people is when I reach about game 100, okay, you can tap me on the shoulder. You don't know if I'm going to start crying or fall asleep crying on the spot. But one of those three is going to happen, because you just reach this level of exhaustion, and that's when you have to love baseball.
That's it.
And you have to love working in sports, and you have to be okay with missing weddings, funerals, graduations, birthdays. You don't get to go home. But that doesn't, the people who are in your life who get it. I mean, like my parents and my best friend Rocky have been three people who they've just always understood that when it's baseball season, that's my priority, but I think there's two levels of toughness to this job. The first one, which I'm struggling with right now, is there's just so much pressure. And if you make a mistake on air, you messed up. Your bosses know you messed up, and then tens and thousands of other people know you messed up. Whereas if you have a normal 9-to-5 job, you make a mistake, you're sitting in your cubicle, it's not broadcasted out to the public. So I think you have so much more pressure on yourself to not mess up, and that can get exhausting, and then the hours. I mean, my work day, because I have to get ready for TV every day, and I don't get to work out at the ballpark like the players. So I wake up pretty late because we're here until past midnight. I told you guys last night I didn't get home until 1 a.m. Wake up at 10, you go to the gym. By the time you're done with the gym, you have to start getting ready and come to the ballpark, and then you're here until the post-game show ends. And I work about 135 to 140 games. So the players, I don't know how they do it. I tell them that all the time, because I get 20 off days a season worked in with the off days that are already in the baseball schedule. I don't know how they have spring training. I don't do that. I don't know how they do it. I mean, it's so exhausting, but if you have that love for it, then that exceeds the exhaustion. You're excited, especially when the team's this good and this exciting, and can literally win a World Series this year, I mean, that trumps all of the exhaustion and pressure because you just want to get here and watch Ozzie Albies fly around with a triple in the first inning.
Well, they're getting a little bit of a break right now, but and I've said this just because I lived it, that when you go into the postseason, you literally live on adrenaline for a month. And it's not till it's over. When we won the World Series in '95, I remember my wife and I laid in bed for a week, just exhausted. I got the flu. I was just, your body shuts down, but you don't realize what you're living off of because there's nothing else to live off of. I mean, it's just pure adrenaline. And the weather changes a little bit, which helps, but just the intensity of every pitch, the travel, the family, everything that's going on, there's nothing else. You can't. There's the only way you can describe it is that it's just adrenaline, and then after a point, it just, you collapse. And, but it is interesting. That's why it's a young man's game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see any 50-year-olds out there playing, right? I mean, Necro pitched as long as anybody. He pitched till 48 or something.
Met him in the dugout the other day for the first time, and I was like, "You're the greatest."
Yeah, he's awesome.
You use the key phrase. It's the same one I always use with people when they ask me about working in baseball. I'm like, number one, above all else, you better love it.
Yeah.
And you better actually love baseball, or you better be willing, if you're fresh out of school and you get some job like in baseball, to break into sports in general. You better at least learn to love it for the time that you're working that, because if you don't, you won't make it. I mean, this is my 5th season, and I work mostly in the social media side of things. And so when I started in 15, we were starting the rebuild, and the 15-16 teams weren't very good. I mean, the record shows that. And I would get tired, and I didn't miss a game those 2 seasons, but even it'd be late August, and even if I was tired and really needed a break, there was still that part of me at about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock when it was time to go to the ballpark that I was still excited to go to the ballpark, and I still wanted to be there, and I still wanted to be around the game. And that's for anybody listening that wants to work in baseball. Just as long as you love it, you'll be okay. I wanted to circle back a little bit because we were talking about how we loved Skip and Pete and those guys. Who were some of your broadcasting, like when you first got interested in it, who were some of your broadcasting idols that you kind of looked at? Because I would think, for me as a kid, I remember like the regional local people, like on the local TV station that I still revere to this day, but then also like the national sports guys that are broadcasters that I love. So who were some of your heroes along the way?
It was more so my mentors. I had some incredible people in Louisiana who just believed in me from the get-go. Tim Brando is a big mentor of mine. He's been, that man, he has believed in me more than I've believed in myself. And there's Steve Schneider, who was the sports director at the station I interned at for 3 semesters in college, who, just the same. He made me believe in myself more than I knew that I could. And then before I started with Fox, so I told you I was working in local TV, I had a second job working sideline reporter for a network. And a man named Lynn Rollins was the Chip Carey there. He was the play-by-play guy. So he was, you have to be patient with someone who's 20 years old and sidelining the game, and when they're holding the microphone, their hand is, shake. And so, people like that who showed me how to treat people, and how to treat people who maybe didn't deserve to be treated as well as they were, because I was so young, and maybe even when I got this job, I was so young, and I'll be the first to say, that, for a lack of a better term, I was undeserving of it. They needed someone, and I had to prove myself, and that first year was trial and error. I hadn't watched MLB. I loved baseball, but living in Louisiana, we don't have it. We have the AAA affiliate, the Zephyrs. Is that so what they're called? No, they're the Baby Cakes now.
Well, they used to be, yeah. They used to be the Zephyrs.
But we didn't get Astros games on our televisions there. That was the closest team. So that first year I had to learn pronunciations of players' names. I had to upgrade my TV package to get MLB Network, and still to this day, out of habit, if I'm getting ready or falling asleep at night, it's MLB Network that's on, watching Quick Pitch or watching any of the shows in the morning, the MLB Central or any of those, just to get familiar with the names around the league. But I don't even know what the question was.
Keep changing.
But yeah.
Well, your mentors, people that you looked up to in the broadcast industry.
Yeah. And then for sideline reporters, Kaylee Hartung, I always just loved her presence on air because she was very conversational, and that's so big, just to be conversational and not have people feel like you're talking. You want a conversation with them, you know.
Right.
Well, that's an interesting point because I look. There's Booger McFarland right now. And that's the one thing that bothers me. Everything's a statement.
Really?
I mean, I don't know if you listen to him, but I mean, it's kind of like, so there's some guys that
He's not on MLB Network, I don't.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we talk about football on this podcast sometimes.
I mean, I'm a Redskins fan, so I watched some of that game the other night, but finally I'm just like, I just muted it and was just every now and then checking in to see how bad they were getting beaten, so I didn't realize I wasn't analyzing the broadcast.
But I think that's something I really appreciate about you guys is that when I listen, I feel like I'm a part of the conversation. I'm just not hearing. There's some people that you listen to, and they're just throwing out facts and they're throwing out statements. And I need to point out, Booger, but there's other guys that do it. And that's what I love about Smoltzy. And of course, I have a personal relationship with him and Paul and you and just guys that it just seems like there's just conversations going on, and I want to be a part of that, and I can follow that, and it's just better TV.
Well, you're gonna pay attention more if just by the tone of somebody's voice. It's going to bring you in. But I just feel like our job, as you guys know, these guys are people before they're athletes, but the fan base knows them as Freddie Freeman, as the Braves, So I feel like my job is to show the human side of those guys. There was a report I did a couple years ago on Adam Duvall, or last year. Well, he has diabetes, and he has the insulin pack that he keeps in his back pocket every game, and has it streaming up, through his jersey, like stuff like that. Mike Soroka had childhood epilepsy, hosted the group of kids out here and their families because he couldn't make it to their meeting because he had games. I mean, stuff like that. I feel like you really put into perspective. Hey, Mike Soroka's up for Rookie of the Year, has the 2.60 ERA, but look what he dealt with growing up, and look at the impact that he's still making on people outside of the baseball world and bringing them into the baseball world. Stuff like that I just feel like is really cool.
I saw a picture of you the other day where you had your black eye, where you'd gotten hit. And, we had some close calls here and people getting hit here recently. And I was thinking how scary was that? And obviously you could relate. Who was it the other day that just got hit?
Well, Culberson.
Yeah, Culberson. Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I'm watching him, and I'm watching that at bat and how he missed the ball. I saw him the other day. I went up and gave him a big hug. I said, dude, you scare me to death. Yep. But, man, I mean, as a pitcher, you're taught to throw the ball at the guy when he turns around and squares the bunt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way we were taught, because they have to make a decision. I'm either going to get out of the way, or if I'm going to try to bunt this, I'm not going to do a very good job. And it's usually going to go back to the pitcher. And he stayed right in there. So you had to cringe a little bit knowing that you'd gone through getting hit, and where you are is not really a safe place anyway, right?
Yeah. Extended netting, protected camera wells is something that I will die on that hill. Getting hit was. I've had a great life. Okay, getting hit was the most traumatizing thing that I've ever experienced. Because I just remember laying there, and I was so embarrassed because you don't want that attention on you, and all the fans, and when the players were running off the field, they were all leaning over the railing trying to see, if what was going on. And I just remember the EMT. I remember trying not to cry because I knew that there were probably there's a lot of seats right by the camera well. I just knew people were probably taking videos or pictures. So I just was like, I'm not going to cry. And I remember sitting there, and I was in such shock. I didn't really know what had happened. I don't remember any pain because it happened so quickly. And then you're trying to figure out what's going on, and I just remember sitting there. I slid down the wall, and the EMT saying, open your eyes. And I wouldn't, because I didn't know what was I didn't know if I was going to be blind. I didn't know if I didn't know anything. And it was just horrifying. And then I remember her saying, okay, we're going to take you up through the stands and get you to first aid. And I said, there is nothing that you can say right now that's going to make me walk up through those stands. The second somebody asks, are you okay? I'm going to ball. I don't know if I'm bleeding. I don't know what I look like. Like, I don't want those pictures circulating. So they ended up taking me, because you can't go in the dugout during the games. It's like MLB rules. So they took me out in front of the dugout. Luckily, my parents were in town, but they weren't at the game. They were supposed to leave the next morning. Obviously, extended the stay. And I remember walking into the executive suite down here where Schiller and Plan are. And the second I'll never forget, the first person I saw was Derek Schiller. And the second I saw a familiar face, and I was in private, I just
lost
completely. And my good friend Anthony Flora, who works for the Braves, was there, and we've been best friends for years. So he got a lot of text messages about something had happened. So he was already on his way down to the camera well to help me. He drove my car back to my parents' house, and then we drove to the hospital, and I was at the hospital all night. And they couldn't determine a lot of stuff because the swelling, kind of like what Charlie, they couldn't figure out all the orbital issues until the swelling went down. And I lost feeling in my face for about 6 months in this area, and they didn't know if it was going to be permanent, or they just said, you find out if it comes back or not. There's no telling.
Did it ricochet first?
I think it
hit the rail?
No, I think it came. I think it was a one bounce.
Oh, off the
and
dirt,
then right
skipped
into me.
off.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But the eye doctor told me I was wearing my glasses, and he said the glasses completely saved me. He said,
really?
The glasses are what actually caused the fracture. It was but had I not had them on, if you see I still have the glasses and the lens with the smudge on them. It was going directly for the center of my eye. And he said you would have been completely blind in that eye or lost the eyeball if you didn't have the glasses on. So then about 2 months later, it happened to another photographer in our camera well, to Scott. And after it happened to me, the team doctors here, I had really struggled being in the camera well. I had to, and you can't watch every pitch. You're taking notes, you're tweeting out updates, you're catching up. The people who said you should have been watching, I'm like, you don't realize what
you're working.
Yeah, like there's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they had diagnosed me with PTSD from it and had put me on an anxiety medicine to allow me to work in the camera well down here. And so when it happened to Scott, I hadn't taken it that day. And I just remember, I think it was Gretchen producing, one of our producers, and I just remember telling her, I got to go. And I was so shaken up because his was bloody and there was blood on the ground and it was, so I was in that shaking. I couldn't control myself, so I had to leave the game for like 50 minutes and just collect myself. And then I guess it happened like a month ago again in our camera well when I wasn't there. So it's this is a hill I will die on.
Well, they were putting the netting. I don't know if you saw it, but they were just putting the netting up.
Is the camera well protected?
Well, I think it covers, where the dugout, but I'm not sure. I think it goes behind the dugout and then it goes.
Yeah, I've been told that it's not.
Yeah, not
that
yet.
The camera well's not protected, which I'm.
Yeah.
I wish it was.
Yeah. No, that's a the hot corner.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about third base being a hot corner, but there's so many balls that get jerked down.
It's like when I get the tweets from fans and they're like, it's going to ruin the fan experience. I'm like, listen, tweet this to somebody who wasn't hit in the face and hospitalized. Make that argument with somebody else.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, I work in the press box, and my view, there's the large net is right in front of my view, and I literally don't even realize it's there. You forget, you don't know that it's there, and that's and the one now the netting is in. Once people get here and they see it, they'll see you forget it's not It's
remember I played when there was no netting above the dugout,
right?
And when that went up, people complained, but you don't hear anything about that now.
Now it's old news.
Yeah. So, but you talking about some balls screaming over the dugout, and skipping off that.
I'm sure.
It's so.
Yeah,
scary,
I don't know how. Yeah, there wasn't more people injured for that, but
okay. Well, I'm going to go complete opposite then here. All right, so we've talked about that. What is this is your fourth season? Right? Okay, so is there one moment that sticks out as your favorite on the job with
year,
Fox?
Clinching,
yeah.
Running out onto the field, seeing Brian Snitker, seeing Freddie Freeman, seeing Julio Teheran, seeing Ender Inciarte, seeing those guys who had been through really tough seasons, and I just Snit. I remember interviewing him after the clinch and him just getting emotional, and you just
did
sit
it again
back.
this year.
Yeah, you just sit back. I feel like it took until this year for the fan base to realize what Brian Snitker means to this team. I think before they heard it so much from the media and we told them, hey, the team loves this man. I think this year they understood it fully, and now I think they're all in on him, which gives me the chills just thinking about, because he's so great to everyone. His family's so great. He's such a brave, and then the walk-off with Brian McCann this year was really special, his first walk-off back as a Brave. And then my first day, I remember it was the day before opening day. So when I got this job, it was a week and a half before opening day when I had my phone interview. So in a week and a half, I went from not even looking for a job to being at Turner Field. And I remember that the day before opening day, going there for the set day when all the TV crews are setting up. And I walked out the gate into right field. And I remember just standing there and looking at the stadium. Probably, one of the first times I'd been in an MLB. I've probably been to an Astros game sometime in college, but I was never around one. I just remember looking up and being like, this is my office. This is where I'm going to work every day. And just having that moment. So those three have probably been my top 3 moments.
It's interesting.
You ask for one, you get 3.
That's great. That's great. We did. Greg and I did our top 5 Braves moments, just us personally, a few months ago here on Behind the Braves. And I'm a lifelong Braves fan, so there's a lot of great memories from as a kid watching in the '90s and all that kind of stuff. But my number one was the division last year, because there's a different perspective working in it, and then you're around people every day, both the guys on the field and people like Snit, especially. You're happy for, because you know what kind of person he is and what kind of family he has, but then working with people in the front office here who fans don't get to see, and how hard they work every day, and we all work in this for moments like that, and to see it come together. And I'll tell you another one I'm going to add. The clinch this year wasn't so much the clinch itself, but the interview with Snit off the field where he was pumping his fist into a stadium full of people was just the coolest visual ever.
Know the interview was in the stadium.
Yeah.
I didn't even know until we hear everybody cheering, so we figured it's like Acuna on the Jumbotron holding up the 2019 sign. So when he turns around to check and see, and that's when I turned too, because I'm like, what are they cheering? And when he turns around and sees himself, and oh my gosh, and realizes that the stadium is going crazy for him.
Yep.
I'm about to get emotional just thinking about that feeling that he got, having no idea that it was for him, and then turning around and being like literally I'm about to cry. Oh my gosh. And then for him to just have that moment, and that's similar to the Brian McCann interview that I referenced. That was, when I was doing that interview, in my mind, I was like, okay, he's celebrated with his team. He was out on the field and they did that whole celebration. He has no idea how crazy these fans are going for him right now. And I wanted to make sure that he had that moment where they were going bonkers because it was Brian McCann, I mean,
sure.
And that's when
You've been following him for 10 plus years, from when he was with the Braves.
Yeah. And just when I stepped back and he just looked at the crowd, I mean, just moments like that. I keep book of every game, and I still have it's in my little notebook, and I want to get McCann to sign it that day's page and get it framed or something to hang up. But when Snit had that realization that it was him on the Jumbotron, I was like, oh my gosh.
It was awesome.
I'm not emotionally stable enough for this.
All right, so when it's all said and done, after we win the World Series, season's over with, what's the first thing you're going to do?
Sleep.
Just sleep, right?
But
no vacation.
This off season, I'm really excited that Fox put me on their ACC college football. So actually, the week I end Braves, I'll go straight into college football.
Wow!
And then I'm doing NBA this season as well for the Hornets. So there's no off season this year. But the Hornets, it's nice because it's only like 25 games, so it's not going to be like a crazy amount of work. I'm still going to have stretches where I have 9 days off in a row. We're freelancers, so we like to get.
Well, you're following your mentor's footsteps, Tim Brando.
I mean, it's all about being versatile.
That's right.
With different sports. But when you were talking about baseball earlier, about how you have to love it, you also have to know it, because you can't fake it like you can maybe in other sports. There's 162 games, so if you don't know it, you can't. That's what's tough about baseball, is you have to learn it. You can't fake it until you make it.
People, especially in the social media world, that's my world I work in. Not only will they see it, they're going to call you out on it in a second, and you're in front of So you got to love it, and you absolutely have to know and love the game. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I've never experienced that where I've had to actually learn something new to be because I think that when you're doing what you're doing, your passion comes through. So are you going to be as passionate about basketball and as passionate about
I love what I do, but I have I have a different emotional connection to this team. I'm not a part of the team, but you feel like you are, you know, and you know them as people, like I said, more than players. You see the early work. You know we're on a plane until 5 a.m. and they have to be back at you see all that. So you have such an emotional attachment to their success, whereas that's separate of the passion that I have for my job. So you'll still see me excited about ACC football and the Hornets, and I'm sure I'll grow into that passion with the Hornets as I, you know, go on in the years with them. But it's different. It'll always be different here.
Sure.
You know, even if it were to ever, I would go somewhere else and wouldn't be with the Braves. There'll always be that love for him. You know.
Charlotte's a good town.
I love Charlotte.
I don't know how good they are. They've been struggling.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So you're going right into another season, right? A couple different seasons. So you're not going to get much of a break. But if you did have a break, what would be your go-to? What do you like to do to relax?
Vacation. Go to the beach.
Beach? Are you a beach? You're a beach girl?
Yeah,
okay.
but I'm a beach snob.
Oh, okay. So it has to be like Turks and Caicos?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like I went to Turks and Caicos with the Marlins sideline reporter last All-Star break, the off-season before I went to Tulum with she was the Rays sideline reporter. All the other sideline reporters, we have the same schedule, so we all travel together. Virgin Islands. I love the Virgin Islands. We took
You been to the Caymans at all?
That's number one on my realistic list. Bora Bora is like number one overall, but that's not as realistic.
Okay.
But
Caymans were my honeymoon. That was
was there a different?
There's Grand Cayman, and then there's a Little Cayman.
Okay.
So
which one did you stay on? Okay.
But yeah, it's if you like diving. So
it looks beautiful there.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. So being from Sugar Land, Texas, correct? So would you go for barbecue or would you go for sushi?
Ew. So I recently, like in the last 3 years, forced myself to start liking sushi. It freaked me out. I would like what it tasted like, and then I'd think about everything that was happening in it, and
what all's in this right now?
I would have a hard time getting it down.
Okay.
But I've never been a big barbecue person either, because I like savory over sweet, and barbecue has that
North
sweetness
Carolina.
to it.
Well, if you go to North
like
Carolina.
Salt. A lot of salt. I don't like sweet. Like I don't put fruits in my salads. That's sweet with like separation. But somebody the other day asked me my favorite food, and I said pizza and pasta. So carbs, I guess.
Okay, there you go. Are we going with the Cowboys or the Texans?
Texans. H-Town.
That's a good answer.
All right.
Good
Well,
answer.
I know you're close. I know you're close to there. All right. Do you have something for her?
No, I was actually just thinking about, am I a beach snob? And I think I am, because I won't go to Myrtle. I'll go to North Myrtle. So I think that's where. Nah, just kidding.
Is that what's like the best beach that's drivable distance from here?
Oh, Destin.
But
Sandestin.
That's Destin. That's so. In the off season, my family we started taking a trip last year. Every off season, it happened once so far. And last year we went to Key West because my dad wanted to stay in the States for just simplicity. But all of the beaches in Florida are cold in January and February. Like we couldn't do 30A, we couldn't do Rosemary, we couldn't do Destin. So we were super limited. It was kind of like Miami, Key West. And Miami isn't a trip that you normally take with your parents.
Key West a long ways down there.
Yeah. Well, and they didn't have a lot of beaches there.
Yeah. They always get washed away.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, thank you so much for spending your time with us. One last thing, we got to plug. I mean, you guys on Fox Sports are going to be throughout the postseason doing post-game shows for every game. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll be traveling with the team. So we'll have sound from players and sit down interviews with the players and coaches, and then Chip is hosting it. And I think they're going to have all of the analysts involved. Paul Bird's involved. Jeff Francoeur's involved. I mean, everybody's kind of like all
Talking
hands
about
on
the watch
deck.
party? Or
well, they're doing them from here, which is super cool.
Right. We did it last year. So we did watch parties. And so we'll have alumni out there pregame right before the game starts. And then we'll all watch it at the Georgia Power Pavilion. It's really cool. So I guess they're going to have the Fox guys out there doing that as well. But we did some of that with the Dodgers last year. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's going to be.
It's going to be a great atmosphere. Out here in the Battery, you guys will be on set out there. Or you'll be with the team. They'll be on set. And then watch parties. Everybody will be out in the Battery watching the game.
Was it slammed last year?
It wasn't slammed, but it was a good crowd. It was a lot of fun. I brought my family out. Like I said, I brought some. We probably had 3 or 4 alumni for each game. And so this year, I know we've got a couple alumni we're going to do for the 3rd and the 4th to start of October.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Blooper was out there. You know, we all get some Antico's pizza and sit down on the ground. They were selling beer, and it was a lot of fun.
When this team is primed and could make a deep run, they're built for it, and
sure.
I hope. I hope you're selfishly. I hope you're working postseason
October,
baseball games all the way through October.
Oh yeah,
so,
same here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kelsey.
Thank
we
you,
really
guys.
appreciate it.